now.
Much needed.
Tamisha, I'm going to move you over. Make you a co-host now. Lydia, do you mind? Can you go ahead and mute? Don't mind. Thank you. Tamisha. Well, let me ask.
Yes.
Can we make sure that they are, I don't know if they can see us yet.
I believe they're in the waiting room. Or did you start the webinar already?
I did. Good.
They can see you, Sergio.
Wow.
Just
okay. Welcome, everyone. Well, welcome. Good morning, everyone. And happy Black Breastfeeding Week. Welcome to our webinar celebrating Black motherhood, a path to healing through joy. And this is hosted by public health advocates, REACH Stockton, and our partner, Flourishing Families. My name is Erica Dorsey, and I'm the project manager for REACH Stockton, which is a public health advocates program, as well as the co-founder of Flourishing Families. We are so excited to be here with you today. So what is Black Breastfeeding Week? It is a week that was created to address the disparities in breastfeeding rates among African-American women and to encourage and support our sisters in the breastfeeding journey while challenging systems to address their institutionalized racism and implicit bias, which have historically contributed to these low breastfeeding rates. This year's theme is Revive, Restore, Reclaim. We'll be rising in our families and communities. And I don't know about you all, but that sounds like a declaration to me, and I'm gonna embrace it. So today, I'm joined with an amazing group of women who are going to usher us into this place of revival, restoration, and reclamation by celebrating our beauty and our achievement despite this crazy time we are living in. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Let's see, making sure everyone can see. So our agenda today, we're going to have our introductions and a poem. We're also going to, from Mama Tama, and we're also going to have Ms. Devonna Robertson speak to us about resilience. We're going to have a moment of reflection and meditation with Ms. Janisha Howard. We're going to have a presentation on social influence and celebrate that, and also a question and answer session with you all. So just quick housekeeping for all attendees, we're keeping you on mute, but feel free to communicate using the chat feature. And during our discussion portion of our webinar, we're going to utilize the question and answer feature, which is down at the bottom of your screen. And we will try our best to make sure that we answer all of your questions. So now I'm going to turn it over to my lovely co-founder, Ms. Tanisha Valverde, to introduce our panel. Tanisha.
good morning, everyone, and we're so excited to have you here. Tamish Valverde, co-founder of Flourishing Families. And our first speaker that we will be having is Mama Tama, actually called Mama T, Tama L. Brisbane. Tama L. Brisbane is the City of Stockton's inaugural Poet Laureate. Now in her third term of service, she has presented over 200 times, including the inauguration of Michael Tubbs, the city's first Black mayor. Following her historic appearance as the keynote poet for the 25th anniversary of the I Have a Dream World Peace Rose Garden at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Martin Luther King III told her, "Your words matter." She is co-founder and executive director of the nationally recognized literary and performing arts nonprofit organization With Our Words, Inc., or WOW. San Joaquin County coordinator for the California Poets in the Schools, one of the largest writing residency programs in the nation, and a teaching artist for public and charter schools. In fall 2020, she will begin curating viral content, a youth poetry anthology documenting the responses of Central Valley youth to 2020's COVID-19 and social justice upheavals. Since 2003, Tama has dedicated herself to growing a spoken word organization, community, and movement in Stockton. With Our Words, or WOW, is featured in the documentary film Broken City Poets, and their work has been written about in the New York Times, the Huffington Post, and the Journal of the American Medical Association. WOW youth poets have appeared on stage with a galaxy of hip hop stars and on tour with the Grammy-winning chamber music ensemble. In a city that is too often among the least literate in the nation, WOW alumni have compiled high school graduation and college attendance rates well over 90%, with several members now teaching in Stockton. Mama T is also a Susan B. Anthony Award for Creative Arts, University of the Pacific of Women Distinction, and a Black Women Organized for Political Action honoree. She is also a Stockton Arts Commission Comet Award winner, a California Vision 2020 ambassador, and member of the 2020 Delta Leadership Academy, and founding member of the Brave New Voice Network. Her tireless work on behalf of Stockton and the Central Valley youth, and particularly young voices from the margins and communities of color, has been recognized by both houses of the California legislature, as well as both houses of the United States Congress. So we're so glad to have you, Miss Mama Tama Brisbane.
Thank you.
Oh, at Lyriat.
I am thrilled to be here.
Our next speaker will be Devonna Robertson. Devonna shared while attempting to breastfeed her third baby and wanting to give up, Devonna was connected with the support to continue after attending a peer-led breastfeeding support group. 3 months later, she found herself in a breastfeeding peer counselor training. 15 minutes into the training, Devonna made a commitment to become a lactation consultant. The deep desire to provide that kind of support for mothers, especially African-American mothers, was ignited. That was in 2007. The rest was history. Devonna believes that here in the United States, we have done a poor job of prepping women and girls for birth. For mothers of color, we've done an even worse job. Although she did explain that she didn't plan to become a doula, the call for action was too great. She's extended her lactation support to connecting with families prenatally and throughout the labor and birth. Her priority in both their outcomes and their her priority in birth work is to give families the tools they need and support to help improve their outcomes and their emotional experiences. Devonna has provided family support services in San Bernardino and Riverside counties for more than 10 years. To this work, she brings a vast knowledge of early childhood education and public service. We're so grateful to have you as well, Devonna Robertson.
Thank you.
Our next speaker be Janisha Howard. Janisha practices as a healer, doula, childbirth educator, and certified lactation educator counselor. Following in the ways of her ancestors, she holds space through monthly full moon healing circles to facilitate healing for healers. Janisha believes healers need healing too. For healers, the focus is often turned towards serving others, which results in neglecting their own needs. I can relate to that. Causing them to suffer the same afflictions they're trying to heal in others. So she created the Ashe Healing Circle, a community of healers who recognize that as they practice self-mastery, they master their practice. A Healing Circle, healers are offered a safe space to focus on their own needs and share in community with those who are like them. Janisha also facilitates healing circles in the community by hosting a weekly breastfeeding support group, monthly birth worker gatherings for the Sankofa Birth Workers Collective of the Inland Empire, and collaborating with other individuals and organizations. Now, Janisha is deeply honored to partner with REACH and Flourishing Families, Inc. during their Black Breastfeeding Week celebration to offer a healing meditation to members in their community. Thank you so much for being here, Janisha. We're grateful.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so excited. This is going to be awesome.
And our final speaker will be Miss Lydia O. Boyd. Lydia is a certified lactation educator who is currently employed at a WIC agency in Los Angeles, Watts, California. She is an experienced breastfeeding mother who works with families who are expecting or are currently breastfeeding. Breastfeeding for Miss Boyd started with the delivery of her son at 28 weeks gestation in 1996, whom she breastfed for a year. Lydia received her first peer counselor certification in 2007 through the Black Infant Health in Pasadena at the Pasadena Department of Public Health in Los Angeles, California, through a community scholarship program. In 2011, Lydia became a certified lactation educator through the UCSD extension by way of her employer. Currently, Ms. Boyd is a double major, sociology and health science. She plans to sit for the IBLC exam in October 2020. For more than 6 years, Lydia worked with Soul Food for Her Baby, which works to increase breastfeeding rates with the African American community while addressing birth and feeding disparities. In 2018, Ms. Boyd launched her private practice where she provides educational, technical, and emotional support to expecting and breastfeeding families and families who return to work and school, and those who are ending their breastfeeding relationship through weaning or in the event of loss. Most recently, Ms. Boyd joined forces with 3 other Black lactivists, hold on for a moment, to birth the Black Course, which is a full scope lactation breastfeeding education course made by and for Black people and folks supporting Black breastfeeding. This course is designed to be a prep course for aspiring IBCLCs and breastfeeding counselors, understanding the history of slavery and all forms of racism that Black families who are descendants of the US slavery have endured over generations. Lydia provides a safe space to reframe family traditions to include breastfeeding as their family's positive and healthy choice. This reframing includes Ms. Boyd's personal model and branding. Our village is made of awesome moms and awesome dads who birth genius babies fed on the best milk in town. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Lydia O. Boyd.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So with that, I will turn it back over to Erica so that we can start, move along in our agenda.
Thank you so much, Tanisha. Wow, so much greatness is in our presence today, and we are so grateful. So as we think about being strong and supportive and wise, intelligent, resilient Black women who show up for our families and our children and our communities, despite negative stereotypes, unfair systems, high rates of morbidity, mortality, and other health crises, as well as complicated relationships and family dynamics. We are extraordinary. We really are. So let's take this time to celebrate us. And so with that, I'd like to hand it over to you, Ms. Mama Tama, if you can please center us in this moment.
Fact. We built America. with our blood, sweat, and tears. Funny how we don't talk about the breast milk, but fact. From 1619 to 1776, we wet nursed this entire country, and its unfamiliar and unwelcome sucklings imposed on Black women's bodies, corrupting the closeness to our own children, but fact. We have reclaimed our babies and our breasts. We are reviving our joy. We are restoring our breastfeeding knowledge and practices with access to cotton wraps and kente shawls. We nurse on park benches, in classroom corners, and quiet office spaces. We will not be silenced, nor shamed into seclusion. We will come together as sisters and sister mothers to express our feelings while we're expressing that next bottle, compare breast shields and provide shields for each other to share our stories, maybe even glory in our amazing new cleavage, no matter how temporary. Because what is now permanent is us, Black women, Black mothers, feeding our babies, forming our families, creating whole weeks dedicated to our experience in defiance of the experience this country still seeks to impose on us, but fact. It's 2020, and we nurse our own. Happy Black Breastfeeding Week.
Yes, come on, come on. Where's my tambourine? Come on, y'all.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your words. Thank you. What an amazing way to start. And next, we're going to have Sister Devonna Robertson, who's going to share a few words on our resilience. I'm going to share my screen.
Good morning. Good morning. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up, Erica or Tamisha, if you can hear me well. Thank you. Mama T, you can't see me, but I'm over here with the tambourine. I got the church plate. I got the offering plate, rather, and snapping, and I'm saying, come through with it. Yes, I'm loving every bit of it. I'm Devonna, proud daughter of Sandra, born in 1956, granddaughter of Dorothy Jean, born in 1931, great-granddaughter of Ola, born in 1904, great-great-granddaughter of Nanny, born in 1885, and great-great-great-granddaughter of Emma, born in 1853. My point in sharing the names of the women that were resilient in my maternal lineage is, it's a long list, but in short, I simply am because they are. I am the current chair or president of the California Breastfeeding Coalition. You see that logo next to my picture. It's an honor to be in that space, advocating on behalf of folks in California. I'm also the proud owner of Vanna's Front Porch. And so just for a minute, come gather with me on my front porch while I just discuss a few points that I think are important about resilience, but also how do we sustain ourselves while being resilient. So resilience, some would say, unfortunately, is in our DNA. We've had no choice. And so at any point, if you ever forget or you ever wonder or question about your resilience, I want you to take a trip to the nearest mirror and look at the reflection. And that reflection is a reminder that resilience is what you carry. So, excuse me, while being resilient is also equally important that we have a system or systems in place to sustain ourselves. Because the reason why Janisha does what she does is because she knows that that's a missing link. We're not sustaining ourselves. And while we're trying to save others, we're giving more and more and are not sustained. Lydia filling the gap. Mama T with her words, filling the gap. Tamisha filling gaps. Erica filling gaps is what we do. But while doing that, a few things that I want you to remember is to prioritize yourself. Prioritize yourself. That looks as easy as even just taking a nap. I shared, I think it was with Janice and a few other sister friends the other day, that I look forward to taking a nap and not setting an alarm. Take a nap. Perfect saying no is another thing we're going to add to our list. Without explanation. You don't have to give a reason why you can't. No is a full sentence, like we've all heard before. Celebrate your successes, your wins, no matter how big or how small. And actually, I think the more you celebrate your small wins, the more and more those small wins feel like big wins. Strengthen your relationships. So if you are surrounded by folks who are not giving to you, then you might want to cut those ties and find a circle, find a village, find folks. And unfortunately, sometimes it's folks that don't share the same blood, but find folks that you can strengthen your ties with. This is how we will sustain ourselves while having to be resilient. Find what your purpose is. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. Many of you already know why you're here and what you're supposed to do, but that can often shift depending on the season in which we're in, right? And so always be reevaluating, what am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing? And make sure you're always on that list of what you're supposed to be doing, right? Give and get love. Make sure you're giving, but make sure you're getting it as well. And sometimes it's not so easy to take and receive, but we need it. We need it in order to sustain. Find a mentor circle. I got one right here virtually, right? All these beautiful Black women in all these hues, part of my mentor circle. Very, very important. And don't ever, ever forget to share your testimony. That's also how we sustain ourselves. Sometimes we got to look back and be reminded about what we've come through, what we've been through. And thank God we don't look like what we've been through, as they say, right? But we all have a testimony. Make sure you share it, because in sharing it, it allows others to also get some healing. Or it allows others to say, hey, I can as well, right? Set strong boundaries. Set strong boundaries, and don't be afraid to do so. That's how we sustain while also maintaining our level of resilience. And never, ever forget to elevate our ancestors. We are, like I said earlier, because they were. And so elevate our ancestors, create ceremonies that we do in our households. Make sure we're elevating our ancestors to our children who are the next generation. We must not forget that we sustain this country with our breast milk. Let's elevate our ancestors. And then the last thing I'm going to add to the list, and your list should be very long. It does not have to be perfect. It's not something you're supposed to do. I mean, we got a lot to do already, right? You're not supposed to be doing things on this list all day, every day, but you must be checking in some type of way on your list, right? Make sure you believe in and checking in with somebody higher than you. And so for me, that's Jesus Christ. For you, it could be somebody different, but make sure you're checking into a higher power. We are resilient because we've had to be. And if you ever question your resilience, I want you to take a trip to the nearest mirror, and the reflection that you're looking at is a reminder that the resilience is what you carry in your DNA. Thank you, ladies, and I look forward to hearing from the rest of the panelists.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Devonna. I wrote down so many of those words of wisdom. So grateful. And man, resilience is what we carry in our DNA. I'm going to let that sit. That's deep. Thank you so much. And moving on, we're going to have our sister doula, Miss Janisha Howard, share about her healing work as well as guide us in a healing exercise.
Thank you, everyone. Come on, Sister Devonna. I'm supposed to be giving a meditation, but I'm so like, I'm so fired up. And I think that is one of the reasons why I created Ashe Healing Circle, is because being around other women who inspire, it just like keeps the fire burning, right? It keeps us connected. It moves us through. And so I love what you're saying, Devonna, as getting connected to a higher power. And oftentimes us getting connected to each other just ignites that even further. So thank you to everyone that's here. I wish I could see all the participants' faces, but I'm just gonna imagine you all in my heart and in my mind. So today we are sharing about celebrating our motherhood and finding a path to healing through joy. So I just want to shout out and speak to a little bit about what is healing. And I think it's different for everyone, but for me, and the way that I connect to it is healing is making whole. Healing is completeness. So earlier this year, maybe the end of last year, I talked to my dad about our ancestry. And I think maybe 3 Christmases ago, it had to be 3 Christmases ago, my dad got us this DNA ancestry kit. And you know, Black people don't trust folks, so I didn't send my kid in. I'm like, what they gonna do? What they gonna do with my DNA? I don't know. But my dad submitted his DNA. And in a healing session that I had, a Reiki session, the facilitator told me that one of my male ancestors was trying to connect with me and contact me. And I said, what? How's that? And I knew somebody had been trying to come through, and I knew that I had been wanting to connect to my ancestors. And I have one here in the back. This is my mother's mother. Her name is Myrtle Darling, and I carry her with me. And so during that session, learning that a male ancestor was trying to contact me, I ended up talking to my dad about our ancestry. And from there, I was able to get in touch with my grandfather. And he told me that we are giraffe people. And anyone who knows me and has met me in person, I'm very, very tall. I tower over everyone. I even tower over a lot of men. And I felt a lot of shame and lack of femininity. I felt just completely out of place. But when I learned that we were giraffe people, I was like, oh my God, I know who I am. And I let go immediately of all of this, of the worthlessness and shame that I felt about my body and about my size and about how I show up in the world. And so I decided to order this giraffe, and it's made out of stone. But when it came to me, it came broken. And I was a little bit disappointed about that. But then I got to see what this was made of. I really got to take a good look inside of it and see what this was truly about. And so I want to encourage you today and let you know that brokenness is an opportunity for you to see who you really are, to connect to what you are made of. Brokenness shows you what you are made of and gives you an opportunity to go on a healing journey to understand how to become whole again. And you can't know that without knowing what you're made of. So don't be despaired if you feel like you're in a broken place or that you're in a broken space. Understand that you're on a journey of self-discovery. And so just like a doctor who would give a heart transplant, we wouldn't be given a new heart from another species. And if we did, it would only be because it was some type of match. And the greatest match to who you are is you. Just like Devonna said, going and looking in the mirror, you'll find everything that you need is right here in this space, in this body. And it's right now. So in order to be whole, we have to start with authenticity. And that authenticity is where our complete joy is found. And joy is a source or cause of keen pleasure and delight. something or someone greatly valued or appreciated. And that something or someone has to be you. You are the greatest joy. It's all about you. And so, mothering from an authentic place will be your greatest joy in motherhood. And so I just want to take a moment for us to kind of sit with our own joy, to connect to our own authenticity. And I want to remind you that this is a journey, that you could ask yourself the question today, who am I? What am I made of? Why am I here? And it may take you months or years to discover what that is. But I want to put to you right now in this moment that you already know. There have been things that you have done, that you have tried, that you have continued to do over time that just somehow keep coming back around to your consciousness, that keep coming back around to yourself. For me, that has been doing things like this, holding space for people, being in circle. And another one has been music. And I said, I've got to incorporate that into my everyday life, either playing it or listening to it. It has to be a part of my everyday life. So I'd like us to take a moment just to connect with our joy and connect with our authenticity. So I want to invite you now to get into a comfortable position, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe it's leaning back in your chair, or if you're on the couch, maybe that's laying down. That might look like resting your hands on your heart space and on your womb space, or just having your arms rest gently beside you. That could look like having your eyes closed or at a gaze. Whatever it looks like to you, just to get comfortable. And we're going to just begin with following our breath. Your breath is a source of life sent straight from God to continue to keep you in this life. You don't need to control it. You don't need to hold on to it. Just let it flow. Your body is so brilliant that it knows how to move and breathe for you, and your breath will change depending on what you're doing. Focus on your outward breath, the breath of surrender. And if you're feeling any anxiety, tension, frustration, maybe something happened this morning or yesterday that you're still holding on to, imagine that outward breath as a release. And every time you breathe out, you just let go and watch that bad thought or uncomfortable feelings float away from you, either down a river or up into the air. My queens, you are divinely guided, divinely protected, supported, and loved. You are a part of God, a part of creation. You are a creator. And you get to choose and create your life, your reality. And you certainly get to choose how you feel about your circumstances. Right now, I'd love for you to imagine the biggest smile of your heart. What does that look like for you? What does that feel like in your body? What does that look like as you move throughout your day? Does it look like letting go of something? Does it look like bringing something new into your routine? Or does it just simply look like being or taking a nap, as Devonna said? Imagine your most authentic self. What does she look like? What does she move like? What does she dress like? What does she feel like every day? I empower you in this moment to begin to show up in the ways you want other people to show up for you, for yourself. If you want more love, be more loving towards yourself. If you want more companionship, be your own companion. If you miss mothering or fathering, be a mother or a father to yourself. If you want more friends, be a friend to yourself. It is from that space where you can begin to mother with authenticity and with joy. You are enough and you are worthy of this moment, of the next breath that you'll take, and the next and the next. I invite you to move through the rest of your day with gratitude, remembering the beautiful things in your life and giving a hug to the difficult things that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. We're going to take 3 breaths together, and then I'll invite you back into this space. Just imagine that your belly is a balloon and you're filling it up with air and then releasing. So we're going to take those breaths together now, in and out. One more time, in and out. And the last time, in and out. Now you can open your eyes, wiggle your fingers, maybe move your head back and forth. And I hope you have found so much joy today. Thank you all for being here.
Wow. Thank you so much, Tanisha. Powerful, powerful words. Beautiful, beautiful, wise, and deeply resonating. So thank you. Thank you so much. And lastly, I don't know how everyone else is feeling. I'm like, whew, I'm so full right now. Thank you. Lastly, we're going to have the amazing Miss Lydia O'Boyd present on Black women and families in the media and our presence there. So I'm going to go back to sharing. Miss Lydia, if you're ready, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So we're going to talk about what our families want when we consider social media and images of ourselves. Next slide. Next slide. Yes. So about me, I am Black lactation. I'm a mother, a friend, a lover, believer, educator, counselor, healer, prayer warrior, and doula. I am a preemie mom who birthed at 28 weeks gestation 24 years ago. I'm a mother who provided my own milk to my baby for a year. I'm a proud descendant of humans that were enslaved in this country and were oppressed by subsequent racism, but survived and lived and thrived. I have supported families in their breastfeeding journey for 13 years. Next slide. So just briefly, we're going to talk about historical images and Black breastfeeding, what Black breastfeeding mothers want to see, positive images, Black joy in our reality, and where to find us on social media. Next slide. Next slide. So historically, we've had images of the honor of breastfeeding. Our ancestors carved images of us breastfeeding, and those were held in such high esteem. We now see those in various museums around the world. These images, they speak to the great traditions and respect that our ancestors held. And this is what came over with us when we got here. Some of the images included, one of the things that stood out to me the most is is the images of sisterhood. Sisterhood was very strong in those images. We do a presentation about the trauma that we've experienced. So we're opened up with what we brought over, and in that we talk about a tradition that when a mom has a baby, that the village women come and they support her. And this is what we see now with our doula support. It's shaky. Okay, I may have to go outside if it continues. So the village support that we see is that we come and we support the mom. And so it says if you call, we'll come. And that's what happens when the mom's coming. So this one image that you see on the screen is a mom breastfeeding, and she's being taken care of. And that's part of our tradition. Next slide. Next slide. What we want to see. Historically, we want to know the truth. However, what we don't want is we don't want this to be the only images that we see. We want to know the truth. We want to know where does our struggle come from, and we want answers to our questions. We want to understand what is pushing our elders to act the way some of them act. And so when you look at these images, and you know the history behind them, they are very daunting. They can be traumatic. They can make you sad. They're upsetting. But these are the reality, and they explain a lot. And so these images that I put up here, they all do not come from U.S. ladies. The one on the far right, that is actually from the Caribbean. So it wasn't from U.S. slavery, but it was still part of the same trauma that we've experienced. And so what moms are saying is that they don't want these images to be the only images, but they do want to see them because they want to understand. And they also want to know, what can I have that my ancestors didn't have? They want to understand, like now what we're dealing with the Black maternal health issue is why. And so the second image from the left explains. When I talk about the trauma that we went through during slavery, we are remiss to not talk about J. Marion Sims. And moms want to know about this. They want to know why we're dealing with this, and they want to understand why it's so important for them to self-advocate for themselves when it comes to breastfeeding, and it comes to ways to birthing how they want to birth. But this, again, this can't be the only image. So next slide. What do we want to see? We want to see ourselves. During various focus groups, Moms have said that they want to see current and present images of themselves breastfeeding. They want to see themselves in reality breastfeeding. They want to see images that don't show them sad. And they understand why past images, while we look so sad, but today they say, I'm not sad every day. I want to see a smile. I want to see my joy. I want to see my happiness. I want to see me healthy and positive. And then they want to see, I am my ancestors' wildest dream. They want to see that their families matter. If the sound is still breaking up, I can move. Let me know. They want to see that their family matters. So, considering the current state of this country, they want to see images with their partners and with their family and with their fathers and with their mothers and brothers, where we matter and we're filled with love and compassion, and healthy and positive. We want to be normal. Next slide. Positive images, please. In numerous focus groups, moms have said they want more positive images, images that portray positive messages, messages that say, I am safe. And right now, that's really important. We want to know that we're safe. We want to know that we as a group are safe, because our reality right now is that we are not safe. But we want to see images that tell us that we're safe. We want something that's affirming. We want to know that our love is valid. For so many years, we were not allowed to be loving, or much less to be loving out loud. Many of us don't understand that part of Jim Crow actually had clauses in it that said that we could not show public affection. We could not even say, I love you out loud, in open, and in public. And so now we want images where we can shout that from the rooftops to our loved ones. We want images and messages that say, I am a loving mother, because we've been told so many times that we as Black mothers have so much wrong with us. But now we want to see images of us loving our children, loving our partners, and being loved. I am a loving mother. Next slide, please. Black joy and Black reality. We want to see it as we scroll. We have to contend with so many images that are not speaking to Black joy, but instead we want to see a balancing out. We understand the reality sometimes, that the reality is not always positive. But we also want to confirm and to express that Black joy exists and it is a reality. When you look at these images, you see the wide diversity within the community. We are not a monolith at all. But we also want what has been said is that we want our elders to see this, because we understand that our elders come with so much. I'm sorry, can you go back to the slide? Thank you. They come with so much. And so these images, they want our elders to see. This is what we want to give back to our community. And then we also want to teach our elders. So when we look at that middle picture, I remember when this picture came out, I was in the middle of my physiology class, and it talked about the cycle of change in the body. And so this is an image that we really want to press with our elders, is that if you feed mom, there's nothing else that we really need you to do, is if you feed and you advocate and you protect mom, she will feed her baby. And in doing so, the work that you're doing, then you are giving to your next generation. And so that's why that image, as well as, most of us look at it and we say, wow, that's so cute, it's so precious, but it's a very powerful image, because where is the elder? The elder says, well, sometimes when you breastfeed, I'm not there. There's, what am I supposed to do? But if you look at the spoon in mom's mouth and the bowl in her lap, that is you. And look at what the effect of it is. You have that nice, healthy, juicy baby that is strong and that's going to carry village into the next generation. So this is what we want. We want Black joy. We want Black reality. Next slide. So where can you find us on social media? So many of us want to see images of us on social media. I'm sorry, next slide. Thank you. So where can you find us on social media? Of course, Sophie's Plug, you can find me. My page is completely centered in Blackness. And so when you think of pages that are centered in Blackness, you will only see images of Black people. The Blacktivist, Black Moms Blog, Black Moms Breastfeed, Chocolate Milk Babies, Cinnamon, which is a local WIC agency here in Los Angeles, Moms in Color, Sadai Khalid photos. They're not, he is a Black photographer. He does not center on breastfeeding, but he has beautiful images that cover the wide variety of the Black community. SC The Village, who works actually with Devana, Vanessa Simmons Photography, and you will see she's linked to another account that I mentioned. And then also Instagram pages who are friendly to the Black community. They're not solely centered on Blackness, but you will see Black images. And when I say Black friendly, that means that you don't have to scroll 10 times before you get to a Black image. So Breastfeeding Art, Breastfeeding LA, which is the task force in Los Angeles, California Breastfeeding Coalition, that's the coalition that Devana is part of. Normalized Breastfeeding, and that is actually ran by Vanessa Simmons. And then Taproot Doula. She is an ally, but she does share beautiful images of Black birth and Black breastfeeding. This is not an exclusive, exhaustive list, but this will get you started if you're looking for images, positive images of us. Next slide. So I just want to say thank you. You are seen, you are supported, you are valued. You can find me all over social media at Lydia O'Boyd, CLE. And thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lydia, for those beautiful images and that positive message and just speaking to the heart of who we are and what we've overcome and who we want to see and be known for. So we appreciate that. Sorry for the delay in the slides. I promise I was clicking on them. Well, I don't know about you. How is everyone feeling? I'm feeling revived and restored and reclaimed. And we want to kind of take all that we've received during this time as we've been celebrating who we are and uplifting and encouraging each other in this space. And we're going to move to our next section, which is our question and answer section. And we're going to utilize the Q&A feature, which should be in the middle of your screen. I think a few folks have already found it, so feel free to use that as well as the chat. And we're going to kind of delve a little deeper into this exploration. And some of these topics may seem pretty deep, but I want you to, in this space, work through and navigate your way back to joy in these conversations. And like Janisha said, that we center ourselves in our highest place of worthiness, right? A lot of what we've experienced has been very deep and painful at times, but that's a part of this healing process, is that we bring it back to joy. So I just want to lead with that and get into it. So I'm going to direct this question to Miss Devana. So this is one of my favorite quotes by Audre Lorde. She says, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare." So Ms. Devana, what is your act of resistance or method of joy? I don't know if she's able to.
Okay, I was talking. Nobody could hear me. Y'all can hear me now, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. I love this quote. Number one, I love this shero of ours. And I think if you aren't familiar with this quote, haven't heard it before, or it's a reminder, snap a picture so you can post it somewhere where you can see it and be reminded. But I have lots of things on my list, but I'm going to talk about the Girl Trek, which I've been participating in for a couple of years, but this last one, which is a Black History boot camp, and it's walking and listening. You can call in and listen to the live conversation Monday through Friday, or you can check it out like in a podcast form later on. But it's such a beautiful thing to be intentional with my time, and the act of walking for 30 minutes a day for Black women can be life-changing. And to know that you're doing it with women who look like you all over the world. So you'll find me out there walking with my earbuds in, probably crying, sometimes laughing, jumping, kicking. Sometimes I'll pick up my pace and do a little jog because I get excited. And praying for my sisters in the work, my sisters that I share the same blood with, my sisters that I have yet to meet, and the generations to come after us. And so that's one of the things that I do to maintain some joy. And joy to me is important because joy is consistent irregardless of my good or bad day. It's the foundational thing for me. So in spite of what the day has brought, joy must be there because that is one of the things that sustains me. So I hope I answered the question and didn't go off on a tangent.
No, absolutely not. I had to write that down. Joy needs to be consistent. Yes.
Yes, it must be. It's different than happy. It's different than feeling good. Joy will get you through. It'll remain even when you're dealing with the loss of a loved one or a health issue, some traumatic things that we deal with. But that underlying joy will make the difference most days, whether or not you're broken.
So good. And we do have, thank you for that, Mr. Bonner, that's so good. We do have a couple of questions. So from Lashiri Ties, she said, what are some ways to encourage Black moms or other women of color to come and to talk and be open so that there are other visuals in their community?
And that can go to any of the panelists.
Mm-hmm.
So my thoughts around that are connect with other moms in your community who are like you, who you want to see be displayed, and who you might want to talk to. So just start talking. Just start talking to people who you want to connect with. Create a space for people to come to have those conversations.
I want to add a little bit to that too, Janisha. I'm not a social media person. Janisha and Lydia got that held down for me. But if you don't physically see people, using social media to tap in, maybe to find out who's in your area, or if somebody got a cousin or a friend that lives nearby that you can connect to, and then take it from social media to in person.
That's good. And Crystal Thornton says, in what ways can we begin to implement a doula program? Ooh. And in San Joaquin, that's in San Joaquin County. That's Tamisha, you might not a panelist, but
Right. We might actually hold on to that question to when we talk about the experiences during birth and pregnancy a little bit later. So I'm going to hold on to that question. And I know it's not necessarily directed towards me, but really the panelists, because they're doing some of the doula work in their areas, and we have yet to be able to do that here in San Joaquin County. So let's put a pin in that question, if that's okay. And then unless somebody feels like they would like to address it now, I think we should talk about it a little bit later. And then let's go to this question. What are some ways to help encourage Black moms who live in predominantly white community? Would anyone like to touch on that? And this is from Miss LaSherie.
This is Lydia. So if you're talking about that particular mom, how can she be encouraged? Then she should, one, you're going to do, this is what you're going to do. You're going to make up your mind and you're going to say, I am going to breastfeed. And then you just go about finding connection, okay? Because first, before anybody else can do it for you, you have to make a decision that this is what you're going to do. And then you open yourself up to information. So you find what you can. So you find resources in your area, and then you begin to broaden your search. So if you're in a predominantly non-Black area, you work with the resources that you have within. And then you look outside of your community for other resources for things that look like you. And I'm sorry, I keep hearing feedback, and that's on my end. So you look outside. So you can go into social media, right? You can connect with somebody here. You can ask, where did you find home? And then you'd be surprised at the resources that may have resources for you. So if you go to your local WIC agency, they may be able to connect you with somebody that looks like you. If you go to your state or countywide coalition, they may be able to. And then you watch for days and observance like Black Breastfeeding Week, even Black Baby Wearing Week. That's the actual thing. Black Maternal Health Week. You look for those kind of connectors, and you make those connections. And then within there, you may be able to find a group that will support you. So right now, our biggest thing is social media, and you can find a boatload of resources online. Facebook, they have tons of Facebook groups for Black breastfeeding moms, so you can find support there and you can make connections that way.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lydia. Look for those connectors. Social media is big, huge, and you gave us a lot of resources for social media that's centering Blackness. So thank you for that. So we're gonna move on to our next question. If Erica could pull it up. And that is, let's see. Are you there? Great. How does the perception of the Black woman's pain tolerance play out in the media today? So, and I don't know if there's, maybe we can direct this towards any specific panelists. We talked a lot about media with you, Miss Lydia. Did you want to bring us your perception on this?
As far as pain tolerance, that has been a national issue within the medical field and just within how we're viewed by society. So, and again, that comes back from anti-Blackness, pure white supremacy thoughts. And that's something that is embedded within our structures and our systems. So within our the medical industry, within the educational system, it's there. So how do we combat that? We advocate for ourselves. We speak up for ourselves. We go in groups. And that's hard for us, especially for those of us who descended from slavery and we've come here because we've been taught to be independent. I can go and I can do this all by myself. But sometimes going alone is not it. Sometimes going with a group is better. And so you want to take somebody with you. And one of the things I think all of us who support moms is that we give those talking points. And so if your partner is there, whether it's, your family member is there, dad may not be with you. You may not have a mom, but maybe it's your bestie, maybe it's your sister, maybe it's Aunt Betsy, who really isn't your aunt, but she kind of adopted you. And then that's when we have those conversations about what we're going to say. So if this happens, then we're going to do this. But you have to think about this. So if pain is your concern, then you need to make sure that the person who's going with you understands that this is my pain, this is my threshold, and this is what I can't. So then that person can say, you know what, excuse me, I know her, she's in a lot of pain. And then we need to give that person permission to step outside of what we call acting right. And so one of the things that I give that permission to do a lot of times, and people get upset with me, is that if we need to have a different kind of conversation, then we have a different kind of conversation, but you need to be able to protect yourself. And so I also give that same conversation, the same talking point to our grandmothers, especially our new grandmothers. So for the elders that's sitting here, is that if we need to go and are all full mominess and go to the nurse's station and have a conversation, excuse me, I know my baby didn't say she was having a problem with this latch and she's in pain, so who's going to fix it? And if we have to do all of, then that's what we have to do. Now, if you have a doula, it's said that doulas do not advocate, that we're supposed to let the mother, the birthing person, advocate for ourselves. Now, in some cases, there's a little bit of advocacy that happens. Sometimes the doula will speak, all right? And it's a different kind of conversation. It's just a kind reminder that, oh, well, she said no, she wasn't ready for a digital exam. You just did that 15 minutes ago. Is it a reason why we need to do this again? Then we have those kind of conversations, and you have full permission to do that. Now, in the cases where you're not heard and you're not taken care of, then what happens is for you to get closure is then on the back end. We are letter writers. When that survey comes and they will call you, you tell the whole entire truth, right? Revelation said that we don't lie, right? So we're going to tell the whole entire truth. And that's how we're going to protect ourselves. And we can write a letter. We can do a Yelp review. We can do all of those things to protect ourselves. And that's what we have to do. And, we don't have to, it doesn't have to be nice. And we don't have to worry about somebody getting in trouble.
Absolutely. You really just gave us some practical things, pieces of advice that we can share with our mothers. There's a question kind of related to this that came up in the chat box from Carisha. She said, what approach should we take united to shift the conversation outside of our community and into the community of the healthcare or health providers or healthcare providers? So what approach should we take to shift that conversation that's happening inside of our community, especially around these topics, into the community of healthcare providers?
This is Devonna. I just want to say a little bit on it. I won't monopolize the time, but I do want to say that, and hey, Carisha, how you doing, sweetheart? Is while we must take the conversation to the healthcare center or the healthcare providers because they are still responsible for so much of our care, we have to also be building something alongside that, right? I often think of the education system, right? Why try to dismantle something that wasn't designed for us to work for us in the first place, right? It's working as it was designed to do, not for us. But I can't just pull my kids out and they not get no education in the meantime. But what we can be doing alongside that is building something that is going to be for us and by us, right, and sufficient. And so, yes, we got to be having a conversation with community and healthcare providers, but we also have to be talking about what are we building that's for us and by us.
I love that. I think that was the foundation for the Black course that Lydia shared about earlier. Absolutely, for us and by us. Anyone else want to add to that, or to add to this question regarding pain tolerance and how that plays out in the media?
Let me say something else. I'm sorry. Stop believing what is on TV, right? Because we're guilty of believing it ourselves, and we know it ain't our story, but we somehow convinced that when we get to the hospital and the doctor and the nurse, that what they say is our truth. If I ain't got nothing else, what I got is a voice. And so I am quick to remind folks, I might not be able to pronounce that word or that medication. I don't want it, number one. But secondly, I don't know nothing better than I know my body. So if I tell you I'm in pain, and I'm not mentally ill. It's not my imagination. It's real. And I've left doctor visits in tears, and not tears of only frustration, but also tears of sadness, because I'm like, if somebody who has a voice like me feels this way, imagine for the woman who feels like she doesn't have a voice, right? And so we have to constantly be reminding them, should we have to do this? No. But until things are better, we got to.
That's so good, Devonna. That's so very good that we we have to keep pushing. We have to keep speaking up, and like she said, like Lydia said, tell the entire truth. I love that. I love that. Don't hold back. And I think also another way we could do that is through. I know there's the Earth app, which is another um, is going to be another form or platform for us to be able to do that very thing, and that there's those power in those numbers as we're coming together. And Carisha said to stop letting them narrate our stories. Exactly. So utilizing platforms like a Yelp or an Earth to share our stories and tell that entire truth and build on this movement alongside of encouraging and also educating providers. So that's really good.
I'd like to share to consider care from other places. I know Devonna was talking about building, and that is such a huge part of what we need to shift, is being able to have safe spaces for us. But recognizing and finding the spaces that are already available is so important. So consider a midwife for your obstetric care, but also for your well woman care. Anything that has to do with the yoni space, a midwife can address and speak to, and can often be covered by insurance. And a midwife spends significantly more time with appointments, 30 minutes to 1 hour, maybe even 2 hours with each appointment. So if you're just thinking that a midwife is there to help you during pregnancy and birth, she actually is there for all your woman wellness needs. So consider that.
That's a wonderful consideration. Thank you for bringing that up. And I know that in our community that we are a bit limited, which I hope we can touch on a little bit later when we answer that question about how we can get some doula support here in San Joaquin County with alternatives. But I love that, considering care from other places. Erica, did you want me to go ahead and read the next question? Okay. So the next question is, how do we, oh wait, actually, I did want to acknowledge, Prisha had made one more comment, was, where are the Black healthcare providers that share our pain? Absolutely, so true. In our community, it's hard. Our community has a hard time getting the approval from our insurance versus our white counterparts, which is also something that's very true. So the next question. How do we as Black women further perpetuate trauma when we internalize and minimize our experiences? I'm gonna read that one more time. How do we as Black women further perpetuate trauma when we internalize and minimize our experiences?
I speak just real quick. When I do writing workshops and poetry workshops, both for young people and for grown women in general public spaces inside of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I have a very common theme that we have to change our language. You'll hear me say, change your language, change your life. And with respect to this question, our language traps us because we confuse endurance with strength. Two totally different words, two totally different experiences leading to two totally different outcomes. And we get so caught up in trying to exist under the burden of strong Black woman that we tend to think that strength means endurance. I can take this, I got this, I can do this. And sometimes the strong move is to break. We say no is a complete sentence, walk away from something, put something down. That's true strength. Endurance don't get you extra points. Endurance gets you the perpetuation of the thing that's hurting you because you're not speaking up and saying no more. And that's a common trap that we fall into. And it keeps the trauma. That silence is the thing that's creating the fibroids because we won't say ouch when we need to say ouch. The minute we learn to use our voices differently and just incorporate different language, we can do so much more and more better healing. I'm off my soapbox now.
Not a soapbox at all. That is actually wise wisdom. And yes, I say. But I'm going to bring that home to breastfeeding. So as someone that supports women, and I have to make that first phone call while you're still sitting in the hospital, so how are we doing with breastfeeding? And you say, oh, it's okay. Now I just asked you, are you in pain? Well, it's not that bad. That wasn't my question. My question is are you in pain? And then I have a litany of questions, and that my goal is to get you out of pain. I need you to help me help you. So again, that takes me back to telling the whole entire truth. Now, I need you to step out of, I'm going to endure this. And that goes back to what Mama just said, is that we are not supposed to endure some things. So and I know it says long suffering. That's not what he was talking about. I don't have to endure a certain level of pain to get this latch right. I don't have to sit in a certain kind of pain in my birth to get this baby out. Now, is there a certain level of pain? Is a certain kind of pain that I'm going to have to endure that's going to be productive? Yes. But is all pain productive? No. So I don't need you to be strong right here because it's not productive. So tell me what you're feeling. We can do a shift. We can reposition. And this is both in lactation and birth. Let's do a shift and we're going to be productive. We may move this baby real quick. We may be able to adjust this latch and get this milk moving. But if you're sitting up here trying to hold on because somebody told you that you're going to have to endure for a minute, we're not being productive. So now, as far as the question, going back to the question, what that does for us, we internalize our trauma, is then we expect the same thing for everybody else. And that's what we do. Well, I was still able to breastfeed. It hurt like I don't know nothing, but yeah, so it's going to hurt. No, that's not nobody dead. That's not what we need. And we need to watch what we say. One of the things that I like to tell people, friends and elders, is that if your breastfeeding experience was not positive, right, you get to share that, but you don't get to share that only. Now you need to share there's a better way. So we're going to go to WIG, we're going to get some help, we're going to call a lactation specialist, we're going to do that. But what we're not going to do is, I'm not going to encourage you, I'm not going to verbally commit you to what I went through. And that's sometimes what we do a lot of in our community, is that I went through it, so then you need to go through it. And it's no, and we're ones to say we want better for our children, but do we really want better? We need to be able to truly, fully commit to wanting better. And that means that sometimes we have to check our own selves and the words that come out of our mouth that come from our one heart. And if you haven't dealt with that one heart, then we're speaking from a traumatized heart to everybody.
I love everything that everyone just said. This is so profound. I want to speak to this too. How do we, as Black women, further perpetuate trauma? I agree, it's in the silence. And so I would say to yourself, start practicing telling the truth on the little things that are not so big, right? I can stay up for an hour later. No, really, I should go to sleep. Or I can take on that extra meeting or that extra duty at work, or kids ask you, Mommy, can you play with me? no, I don't want to play right now. And start with the little things, telling the truth. So when the time really comes for you to tell the big truths, it's not so much to bear. We have to start telling the truth and being honest with ourselves about our state of being, about our pain, about who we are, about what makes us feel good. It's a consistent and constant check-in, because we as Black women are always having to mask, and we do it to ourselves. We mask to ourselves so that we can just make it through. Like, I understand why this happens, so that you can survive. And so it's time for us to come out of survival mode into being. And that means you're choosing, not just doing and moving through because you have to. And I think as we start to come out of that, the less that we will have trauma, the less that we will have internalized experiences that we're minimizing, because we're being honest about what we can take, what we can't take, what we will and will not do, who and who we will not be with or go with. A lot of times we have experiences because we agreed, traumatic experiences, because we agreed to something we should have never agreed to in the first place. Like that's a truth that we have to own, ladies. That we should be saying, no, no, I'm good, no, not you, block it, block, 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 block. Letting go of our professional people pleaser ways that were put on us. Those were not ours. Those were our ancestors, because they did it to survive. It's time to put that down so that we don't have to experience so much trauma in the first place.
That's so good. Thank you. Ooh, that is so deep. And sometimes that means telling a parent, you know, I'm sorry, I hear you, but I'm gonna have to put that down.
Come on. And I have a friend who left from her parents' house and she moved into a different place. And she was talking about it. And she said, I broke a lot of hearts, but I also broke a lot of chains. And that's what telling truth does. It's gonna hurt somebody's feelings. Somebody's gonna be mad. Somebody's gonna say something about you. Somebody's gonna talk about you. Someone's gonna try to convince you that your truth isn't real. But that truth is what breaks chains. And I'm gonna continue repeating what my friend said over and over and over again to as many people as I can, because it's so profound. Break those hearts, they'll mend. But broken chains are broken forever.
Profound. It's just so profound. All of you. It's just amazing. Tamisha, did we have any other questions from the chat to lift up for this question? Okay. We'll move on to the next question. In what ways can a Black woman's experiences during pregnancy, birth, and breastfeeding impact her healing and joy? And I'll open that to any of you.
I'll share here. What impacts healing the most is not having support. Because you've gone from a place where you are supposed to be cared for to a place where you're still doing all of the caring. And so as much as you can, even if it's just virtual support, if you're pregnant, go to a breastfeeding support group, even if it's online, just so that you can be around others who have just recently gone through what you're going through. I think also to speak to our own specific experience, it is difficult, and we do have to admit that it is difficult to find support. And so I honor that part of our journey, that it's hard because not a lot of people are doing it. I think it's become new to start having these conversations and talking about it, but the yearning and the longing that you have, it's there for a reason. And for a lot of us are here because we had to create what we did not have. I gave birth at 37 weeks via cesarean birth. I was at home alone by myself trying to breastfeed with a toddler and a newborn. I had no one. My mom, who was set to retire I gave birth a week early before she retired. So I was at home all by myself with a 5-pound baby. And this was before I knew all of this stuff. And so that's why I started this work, because I didn't have what I needed. And so you may have to create the kind of experience that you want to see for yourself. And I know that's hard and it's not fair and it's not right, but that's how we win for the next generation.
That's good stuff. This is Ivana. I absolutely love it. I love when I see it in the mom's eyes when she has reclaimed her power through her birthing and breastfeeding experience. I mean, that's a beautiful, absolutely beautiful thing. I don't even really have the words to describe. I see it often enough that, sometimes I'm looking for it and I don't get it because it might have been some trauma or some challenges. But I tell you, when a mama gets it, you better get out the way because she's about to run you over. Like she's coming out the blocks with her spikes on, getting ready to do this run real quick. You better get out the way, right? And so there's a lot of beauty in even the challenges of breastfeeding, with the challenges, maybe even with some trauma sometimes, but when there's also overcoming. And when they get to that overcoming part, reclaim their power, it revives their spirit. It restores their belief in themselves. And so that's one of those places where I see it, the whole theme of Black Breastfeeding Week 2020, revive, restore, reclaim. It can happen in a Black woman's birthing experience and breastfeeding relationship.
That's so good. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm just writing down like all these. I mean, this is inspiring. Thank you for that. I also, I don't know if anyone else had any other thoughts.
I have a couple of thoughts. I guess as the resident elder, I gave birth to my first 3 children at home in the 1980s. It is a whole different environment now, because when I gave birth to my kids 80, 81, 84, and had them all at home with a midwife, you would have thought that I crossed the plains in a covered wagon in the Black community, because I was just that much of a fringe type of experience. And so everything that I had to create, from researching red raspberry tea to augment my labor, delivery, and breast milk, all of that was knowledge that I had to find for myself, because these circles that we experience today did not exist. And so now to be here where we are pooling our resources and expanding our experiences and sharing them, it is still somewhat of a challenge, but it is not the Mount Everest that some of us had to experience. And that part allows for more confidence, more community, and I promise, confidence plus community equals joy. And that's how that happens. And so in what ways? Just be present in the now and in the amount of resources and resource women and resource providers that you have. Joy is so much easier to access. And that makes me happy to see.
That's so good. Confidence plus community equals joy. I love that. I love that. I also want to take this moment to put up the question that was answered or asked before from Crystal. She said, in what ways can we begin to implement a doula program in San Joaquin County, specifically Stockton? And I think this is a good place to maybe address that.
I have something to share, but I feel like I'm sharing a lot. So does anybody else?
No, you're fine.
So Devonna and I are founding members of the Sankofa Birth Workers Collective of the Inland Empire. And that began out of us just wanting to come together and provide resources and support to two groups of people, the Black birthing community and those who serve the Black birthing community. So we just started having meetings. We got on Instagram, we were like, who's a birth worker in this area? And we just got together. And what we found that there were so many of us that had so much drive and almost kind of like the same vision. So I would say put the call out there that of the vision, put words to your vision. And the Bible says that faith without works is dead. So you can have your faith and what you believe you should do, but you got to move on it. And I also heard the story of the Israelites when they went into the water, crossed over the water from Egypt. I heard it told this way, that the sea did not part all at once, but it parted every time they took a step. It parted more and more and more and more. And I know for me in my journey of starting off with just having an idea of I want to help women breastfeed. Breastfeeding was my first love. I found myself watching a YouTube video, an educational international YouTube video on breastfeeding before I got into this work, and I started crying. I'm like, who watches educational breastfeeding videos in the first place? And then got emotional about it. I said, I have to do something with this passion. But I had no education. I was living separated from all of my friends and family, probably about an hour away from where I grew up. And I didn't have connection with anybody. And so I talked to a friend and I said, how can I get connected? And she was running a breastfeeding support group. She said, come to the group. I said, okay. And now I run that group. So it just took me getting up and connecting with other people who had the same passion as me. So now we're having a doula training. We host monthly gatherings for birth workers in our area. Myself and one other sister from the group is starting a virtual breastfeeding support group next month. Just from us speaking up and saying what our truth is and what our vision is. So I invite all of you who want to be doulas or who want to start a doula program, come to our circles. They're online. And let's talk about it, how we can support you.
That's awesome.
Let's do this. Let's have doulas everywhere, midwives everywhere. Now they have that new Black midwife who started her own midwifery school. Like people are popping up, creating. Let's create. Let's do what we're here to do. We're co-creators.
I'm so glad you said that. Absolutely. Some of the ladies, oh, thank you, Devonna. I was going to say some of the ladies are asking, how can we access the circles? And it looks like through sankofabirthworkers.com, the website.
Yeah, or just go on Instagram, Sankofa Birth Workers Collective. Because I have direct links. Every time there's a meeting, we have direct links. So I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, perfect.
And Cherie had asked as well for a link for the course that Miss Lydia provides, the Black course.
Yeah, I shared that already. I'll put it in the main chat though, so everybody else can have it as well.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is so. Did anyone else want to add to that question or answer?
I would just add to be bold and to be courageous. Be that Black woman that walks into a city council meeting and puts in to make public comments all alone, right? And say, you know what, this is a crisis that we've been dealing with. It's not a new crisis. We need these resources. We need the resources to, number one, be allotted for such a cause as this. We need it to go into the hands of the right people, and it needs to be people of the community. We need support, and then be bold and courageous at the next meeting and show up again. Then be bold and courageous at another meeting and show up with a sister friend and her baby. Be bold and courageous and pack the kids' dinner, put it in a bag, and show up with all your kids to a meeting, right? You let them know I'm here and I'm not going away. We're not going away, and just continue to be bold and courageous.
That's so good. I love that. Pack up their food. Like, get it done. I love it. We're going to move on to the next question.
All right. What role does toxic masculinity play in the trauma experience within the Black family and community? Good question. Not once. Go ahead.
First, we need to understand that the bulk of toxic masculinity within our community was not as predominant as it is now during our ancestors. When you look back at the history and the traditions, most of our African tribes, they came from a place of equity and equality between the sexes. We were equal, we were put together because we fit together. We had shared passions and shared callings. And so it was more teamwork, team-based. It was really community-driven. We worked for the betterment of our village. So now when we got here, you know, we saw, and it was a European way, this is how we socialized. It was a hierarchy within the relationship, those type of things. So now what happens is we go through very similar things, but then we don't see each other. We're told that we don't understand what they go through, and they're told they don't know what we go through. However, anti-Blackness really does not have a gender. It is very equal gender-wise. And the data shows that. Now, while the same way with slavery, they wanted men, they wanted the male, they wanted them more because they were profitable. However, when we look deeper into it, they wanted the woman because her reproductive organs, her milk, made them a lot more money. So we are kept and we're valued at a different level. We can be harsher, we can treat them in, we can beat them, we can kill them, we can jail them. We can, after slavery, we can go and we can round them up. She'll be fine with the children. We'll just wait, make sure he pregnates her first, and then we'll round them up, and then we're gonna put them in lifelong prison. And that continued to today. When you look at the data from slavery, the ages that they went after were, 15 to 25. Who is filling our prison systems now? Black men who are 15 to 25. And that's where we have it. So when we have our girls and we're pushing them to go get your education, we're dealing with the fear of our Black men. Either we're fearful that they'll get took or they've already been taken. And those are the things that we have to start there. Then we have to have a different kind of conversation where we need to hear each other. And that conversation needs to start with, we need to take our feelings off the table, and that's very, very hard. And sit back and actually hear one another, because what are the first things that our ancestors used to say to one another when they greeted us is, I see you, and with seeing you, I hear you. And if I don't hear you, then I can't understand you. And how am I going to empathize with you? how am I going to walk this journey with you if I don't understand your heart? But that's where we had a huge disconnect. So now when we look at the systems that are in place, the basic thoughts within society, specifically here in the United States, it has caused a serious divide, and we have been the most oppressed. And that's why we combat, and we're so combative and we fight against one another. However, it's those basic needs and those basic desires that will bring us back together. And when you sit down within the breastfeeding realm, and the birth realm is, we want to be safe. Everybody wants the baby breastfed because we understand that that's the best thing. Now, how to go about it and who makes the decision is where then we lose our respect for one another. And one of the things that I say is that we cannot dismiss, disregard, and disrespect our Black men. We do it far too much. And we can't expect for him to sit and be present and active, which the data shows that he is, regardless of a marriage certificate. But if we do that, then we have pushed him out, and we can't be mad when he and his wallet goes later on. So we have to change that. But on the flip side, we also need to be seen and we need to be heard. We can't dismiss the things that we go through. We can't dismiss the trauma. We can't dismiss that Black women have the highest rates of sex trafficking and sexual child abuse. We can't dismiss the fact that because of our trauma and racism, that Black women do deal with a higher level of postpartum depression. And there is a difference between postpartum depression and psychosis. We have high rates of postpartum depression, and we need to deal with that. And really what happens is we need our partners there. So when we look at it and we don't have that support, that masculine energy support, we have to understand now we're fully disconnected and we're going in kind of behind the 8 ball. Dr. Niels Bergman talks beautifully about how dad brings the dopamine, and what does dopamine mean to a brain of a birthing person? It means I'm safe. And what does that mean to our body in our reproductive? I'm safe, I can relax, and I can open up, and I can release this baby. Now, what did I say? Pain, it has to be productive, right? So we need to have that. So that's where the team instinct comes in. And it also goes back to our elders. And again, understanding what the elders have been through, but we have to stop working from a survival place. We're free now. And so now we can sit and we can embrace our children with full love without the fear, and we can be supportive of this family together. We can be supportive. We don't have to have such a tight grip on our daughters and our sons, where we're keeping them apart while we want them to be together. And that's sometimes what we fall into when we look at the full picture of the family, is that I'm trying to hold on to my son and I'm trying to hold on to my daughter because I don't know what you're going to do. But in reality, what I need to do is kind of back up and trust that I've done everything that I could possibly do, and I'm here to support. And that's where village support comes in, and this is where village support needs to heal. So going back to just pure toxic masculinity, is then we need to start a new way of raising our sons. We have to have a different kind of conversation, and we need to allow them to be human without the fear that we've had. And that's hard because the reality of the threat is still there.
Wow. You said a mouthful there. That is profound. I mean, absolutely. I love that, what you said about not trusting each other enough and trusting ourselves that what we put inside of them, that it's going to come out, and not aiming that distrust at a partner or, the other parent. That's amazing. That's beautiful.
Devonna, you're muted, so you go and then I'll go.
Oh, what am I saying? I'm sorry. Am I answering the question?
No, you were unmuted, so I thought you wanted to speak, so.
I didn't realize I was unmuted, so I hope I haven't been making too much background noise, clicking on my pen and stuff.
You're good. Go ahead, Janisha.
Does anyone else? Okay. So I have a lot to say about this. I want to first like give a big check mark to everything and a cosign everything that you said, Lydia, for sure. But I want to say something too that might be a little bit painful, is that we also perpetuate toxic masculinity as women. It's not just males or men. By upholding some of these standards that we have allowed, by allowing things to go on that shouldn't go on. And that kind of speaks to what I said before. And so how do we start to move through this and heal and let go of toxic masculinity? I think first of all, we need to know that it's already breaking. I think we need to understand that the duality of life, which is the divine feminine and the divine masculine, are already in shift, and there's a lot of healing taking place. And so women's voices are being lifted. Our voices as Black women are being lifted more than it ever has in the past. And as much as we still have to go, we are a lot further than we have ever been. So I want to give you guys some hope in that space, all of us, myself included, some hope in that space is like things are moving forward in the right direction. Secondly, I want to speak to this, what are some ways to keep Black fathers engaged and encouraged? I think number one is they have to want to be engaged in the first place. So let's not spend our energy trying to make them become engaged, but instead creating a safe space for them to show up and be engaged in the way that they have to find their way, right? So I have mamas all the time in support group come to me and say, he won't hold the baby cries, or the baby's scared of him. I'm like, well, how often does he get to hold the baby? Just like you were forced, because you were the only one there most likely to be with your baby, whether you're breastfeeding or not, you've developed a bond in a relationship with the baby, and the baby's most comfortable with you. But the father has to be given the same opportunity and a safe, joyful experience he has to have. So from day one, getting that baby on the father's chest, skin to skin, it's got to happen. Whether y'all are fighting or not, we got to get that father in there with the baby on the chest, because even if y'all aren't together or getting along, we still want him to be involved with his child if he's not dangerous. And I don't just mean physically dangerous. I also mean emotionally dangerous. There has to be some consideration. So I'm not saying let an abusive man, come and be in your birth space. Like, no, we can't do that. But if he's involved already and you're in a relationship and maybe things are rocky, give him his time. And the other things can be worked out. If things are going well, then communicating, having a conversation before the baby even gets here. How would you like to be involved? How do you see yourself being a father to this baby? When the baby's born, what do you see yourself doing within the first week? What do you see yourself doing in the next week? And this could be a conversation you have with your doula or your midwife or your doctor, if your doctor, is willing. I think we spend so much time talking about what color do we want the baby's room and how do we want to plan our baby shower, and we're not talking about the things that are really going to matter. How are we going to deal with sleep? How are we going to, or lack thereof? How are we going to deal with grandparents and others coming in? How are we going to deal with our own personal needs? Because I think there's a misconception that all of the personal needs for the mom go out the window and the dad is like able to go and hang out with his friends and go to work and do all this stuff, and we're just at home stuck with the baby. No, that has to be a conversation that's had. And so I feel like that's where some of the toxic masculinity can be uprooted, is saying that, hey, I have needs too, and so do you. So how do we together as a team work this out? Conversation before the baby comes. If the baby's already here, maybe a year or two in, no problem. Let's talk about it now. I have needs, you have needs. We all matter. My Black life matters, your Black life matters. Let's talk about it. How can we make this work? And so I think we just have to have some honest conversations first with ourselves, about how are we perpetuating toxic masculinity, and then what do we want to do to start doing something different. And moving in unity, I think the theme through all these questions is telling the truth and saying it out loud. And then number 3, creating a safe space for someone to hear our truth. We have to give our friends and our family a safe space to tell the truth to us generationally.
That's so good. Thank you so much, Tanisha. I love that. Creating a safe space to hear truth, to receive it. That's really, really good. We have one more question we'll listen to. Actually, 2 more, I'm sorry, if we have time. So what are some of the ways we can change the narratives in the media about the Black family? Anyone?
We have to create our own media. We have to create everything for ourselves, right? And then I'm gonna second everything Miss Lydia already spoke to, putting our true images of what our life is really like out there. We all can create a social media account and we can share what's going on with us. For me, it's that simple.
I think at this point, we have to accept the fact that racism is what it is. And we have to detach from the depravity that has been imputed to us. We have to create our own. We do have to create our own. And we can't be so dependent on quote unquote dominant culture because it doesn't hurt us as much when it doesn't come from us. If we didn't perpetuate the racism in the form of internalized racism, it probably wouldn't have as much of a hold on us when we look at what we do, how it hinders us, and those type of things. Because somebody else outside of the family can talk about us, but as long as mama, daddy, cousin, uncle, Aunt Becky doesn't say it, then I know I'm okay because they're not part of us. They don't know me. So we have to detach. And there's a lot of things that we need to take off. I say this all the time. We need to take it off and lay it at the feet of the oppressor and be like, this is yours. You can have it back. I don't need it anymore. And that needs to be part of our daily affirmations.
I love it, Lydia. Take it off and give it back to him. I'm sorry. I love that.
I do this. I do this. For me personally, I'm a survivor of multiple sexual abuse and physical and mental abuse, and it shows within my body. And so there's certain parts of my body that I struggle with, and it's affected my health. And I know that my body is shown up because it's had to fortify itself, right, from some of the abuse. And now what I do is I stand in the mirror and I rub it and I say, thank you, but I no longer need it anymore. You don't have to stay. I don't need you. You're free to go. And that's those things that we need to say. So we are not a violent people. We're not a violent people. We're not stupid. We're not dumb. Our kids are not bad. Our kids are geniuses. That's what our ancestors used to call our babies. They saw our babies as incoming genius into the village. So why would we ever, with this knowledge, ever look at a child, especially a Black child, and call that baby bad? I don't allow my mom to call my babies bad. And when I say mine, that means then you're not in this alone. And that was a hard thing for me because of how I was raised, that if I had another mother ever call my baby her baby, oh no, we don't do that. But now it's you're not mothering alone. So, and when you mother alone, then sometimes you have all this pressure and you're angry, right? But Black women are not angry. Black women are beautiful. Black women are healthy. They're positive. They're smart. They're joyful. They're helpful. They're all these things. Whose responsibility is that for us to see ourselves as that? That's our responsibility. I can't leave that to Bob and Becky. I have to do that. Bob and Becky didn't raise me. Bob and Becky didn't put in on this. So that's what we have to do. Dominant culture is going to do what dominant culture needs to do to benefit them. And they have no benefit seeing it any other way. This has been working for them this whole entire time. Who benefits from me seeing myself better is me and my kids and the next generation. And I owe that to my ancestors. So when we say that shirt, like Albert DuVernay is, I am my ancestors' wildest dream, I have to believe it first. So the media is not going to do that. It's not going to benefit them. The only way it's going to benefit them is if they tie themselves to it. And we don't need them tying themselves to us. We need to be loose and fancy free for this ride. We have so much work to do that we can't hold on to. So that's why some of this stuff, you got to lay it down and give it to them. So when you see white people nowadays, you're like, here, you can have this too. Just take it. I'm giving you a gift. Here you go. You can have your stuff back. Take it.
And give your stuff back to your parents. Give that stuff back to an old boyfriend or girlfriend. Give that stuff back to a friend that didn't love you, an old teacher who said something about you. Give people back their stuff that they try to put on you. I love it.
I love that. It's so good. Tamisha, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say absolutely powerful. And it's a perfect segue into our last question, because she named some of the things that we can be known for besides just being strong. So in 1 to 2 words, this is the final question for the panelists. Besides being strong, what do we want to be known for?
My 2 words would be joyful and rested.
My 2 words would be deliberate continuity.
Awesome and genius.
Well, and I have to use like a phrase, in community.
That's so great. Joyful and rested. Deliberate continuity. Awesome and genius. And that genius we get with a little more breast milk, right? And well and in community. That's where it's at. Thank you, ladies, so much for your words and for this time. You all have said so much, and I know I've written so much of it down, and so I'm just so grateful for the collective, for our wisdom, for this opportunity to uplift us and to celebrate our genius, our community, the confidence we have, all these things, these words. I mean, make sure we share our testimony, right? Resilience is what we carry. It's in our DNA. Joy needs to be consistent. Tell the entire truth. Operate or make sure that our pain is productive, right? And just so many things. Be bold and courageous. And take it back, give it back to who we need to give it back to, and be okay with that. And I love this too. Perfect saying no. I love that. That's so good. But I thank you so much for your time, and I want to sit us with, and I want to be respectful of your time. One statement I saw this week from one of the Black Breastfeeding Week co-founders, Ms. Kimberly Seals-Allers, it really stuck with me. She said, "You owe it to your maternal ancestors to rest and heal. It's a privilege they never had." So I want to leave that with us, just as we think on all these things that we've discussed. And I pray that it would lead us on that path to healing. And now we want to close out in our last few moments with a poem, a closing poem from Miss Mama Tama. Again, I just want to say thank you so much to all the panelists. You've been amazing. These words are going to resonate with me for a while, for quite some time. So thank you so much, Mama T.
This has been an honor and a privilege. I like to play with format sometimes, and one of the first forms I like to teach my kids is acrostic, where each letter of a line ends up spelling out another word or phrase. And this poem has 5 stanzas, 26 lines. I'll tell you what it is at the end. Before you decide, remember, each extra day is an incalculable advantage, a holistic head start we give our sons and daughters when we press tiny heads to our full breasts and our fuller hearts. Men ain't never solved the math of motherhood. And if there is no more perfect formula than our natural nutrition, then let's love our little kings and our little queens enough to keep breastfeeding one more week. It is challenging. It is confusing, at times inconvenient. So you gotta push through, cry out, call for help. But you already discovered that part. Laboring, pushing to your very limits, and then past them. And you both won. Now, commit to one more labor, one more push, and keep breastfeeding one more month. Generations of us made this choice intuitively, instinctively, but now we need to intentionally reclaim at birth our birthright of passage. Love your little king, your little queen, enough to make a joyful journey together. And wherever your finish line is, girl, you will have been the gold medal gift of life if you just keep breastfeeding one more day, week, month. Come on, you can do it. And those 5 stanzas spell out breast milk is Black girl magic. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mama T. And thank you so much to all the panelists. We so greatly appreciate you again. Happy Black Breastfeeding Week. I pray you all have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you, everyone. This is so amazing. I'm so full.
And I just want to say as well that this webinar is going to be available for watch, posted to, I believe, Public Health Advocates website, as well as Flourishing Families website.
And also for those who are in Stockton, it's going to be available for Black Family Day on their website as well for a limited time. So thank you so much. Thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.